drives her car alone. She will not permit any man to sit in her car, only Tom. And you say that to me? Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it's very, very important that we remember that, because it's not so much that you're trying to help somebody sit here and drive. It's the people are. Did you see that, Pastor? He has a strange woman in the car. And the sin in the mind of people runs crazy. I always tell a story about Christmas time. I don't see a pencil. They had old pencils that was about this big. You could take it out and turn it around and put it in. And this part here, the cover was white, and it was a red eraser on the end, okay? And these two men, board members of the church, were selling these pencils to help raise money for Christmas project for the church. It was a very, very bitter, cold night, and one of the men took this white, and it was like a chrome on this end. He stuck it in his mouth. To take the money from another person, put it in his pocket, and give them their pencil that they were selling for the Christmas project. Two women walked by. These two women were not in the church a long time, but they come walking by. They saw this man with this pencil in his mouth, and it was red eraser on it. And since it was cold, the smoke coming out, they ran to the pastor of the church. You need to fire those board members. Why? Not good examples. Why? They were smoking. I mean, people misunderstand because sin blinds the eyes of people. And they can't see through that these two men were trying to sell these pencils for a Christmas project. They had to bring the women in, bring the men in, and explain to them what they saw. Oh, and the women. That's right. Satan will do anything to cause division in the church. Okay? All right. So understand, Satan is the enemy 24/7. Yeah. Right. Okay. So Paul is trying to teach Timothy the mentoring, the spirit of family relationships within the congregation. All right. Now, we come to a very, very interesting part here. And it's 1 Timothy 5, verses 3 through 8. It's going to talk about widows. Widows is the context. Treat poverty as with honor. I want to tell you a story. Another story, okay? This old woman walked into the bank. She wanted to withdraw $20. The teller told her no. We can't let you withdraw $20. And the old woman says, but why? I have a bank account here. Why can't I withdraw $20 from my account? Because the bank doesn't give the money. You need to go to the ATM down there and ask for your $20. The old woman says, I don't know how to work ATMs. And the teller tells her, says, please, you're blocking people from coming through. Move over to the side. Go over there to the ATM and get your $20. So the old woman just stood there and realized this teller was very, very angry with her because she would not move. So the old woman says, okay, I want to withdraw all my money from the bank. The teller says, she's looked on the computer. This woman has over $1 million in my bank. So she says, it's going to take a while. The old woman says, I will wait. And the woman was gone for about a half hour. Came back and counted out $1 million in 100s, 10s, 20s, 50s. And the old woman took her $20 and says, I want to put my account back in the bank. Why not? Why not? You know, the point of it is, the point that it is we don't respect the older people. We want to push them aside. We're saying their generation is finished, you know? And what Paul is trying to say here, widows in need means widows with not other ways of support, really alone. It was the Christian duty to care for those. Okay? Now, we're going to go and we're going to see how Paul splits this group of widows. I think there's 3 or 4, okay, if I remember. 1. But if any widow have children and nephews, let them learn to show piety at home. Love their parents, for that is good and acceptable to God. If the widow has relatives, let the relatives take care of the widows, is what Paul's saying. They don't become the responsibility of the church. The responsibility for the parents are the people the 2nd and 3rd generation has divine approval. If you have a mother or a father it doesn't say here whether it's a woman or a man, a widow, they're alone, living alone, and they're having difficulty, don't take that widow and put them on the responsibility of the church. It becomes the family to take care of them. Okay? All right. Now, that is a widow indeed, desolate, trust in God, continues with supplications and prayer night and day. This is a widow without children, without family. Okay? But she that lives in pleasure is dead while she liveth. Now, this Okay. This group of widows were in Ephesus. They would live wildly. Some of these widows are young enough that they love pleasure. My husband or my wife is gone. I can live it up now. I can go out and have my Cadillac, my Rolls Royce. I can go and play around in the world. I can do all I want. Okay? This was the first. Now understand this. This is where history comes in. This is the first century. Many single women had sinful ways of receiving support. Paul says that liveth in pleasure is dead while she's alive. If she has wandered from God and she's alone and she's playing in the world, leave her there. Try to pray for her. Bring her back to God, because to choose to support themselves unchristian way outside of the church's responsibility. She's really alive, playing, but spiritually, they're talking about spiritually dead, physically alive. Those people those widows who want to have a life. If, my husband, he picked on me all the time, I'm going to go out, spend all the money, buy a big house, new clothes, everything. I'm going to play around and do what I want to do now. You see? They are alive, but spiritually dead. That's what Paul's talking about in the 6th verse. 7, and these things give charge that they may be blameless. They are blameless. Paul is challenging Timothy, referring to the responsibility of the children of the support of their family. One's own relatives, family, those who have their own house, it is the family's duty. Now, I'm going to go off this here, so hold on for just a moment, okay? I'll come back. Elaine, family is taken care of. That's the proper thing. Okay? Didn't want to use the name here. Okay? To deny is to deny the truth of the Christian faith and puts one in a worse place than to say, I don't want that person. You heap the world's responsibility and sin upon us. They're blameless. We're the blame for that happening. 8. But if any provide not for his own, and especially those of his own house, he has denied the faith and is worse. This is still referring to widows, okay? Now, what Paul is talking about, let's see. You took care of your mother, right? For a while. Short time. Okay. She did it right. I understand that. She made the decision. You did what was right. Yeah, and I understand that. Yeah. The point of it was, Mama was widowed. Okay? Had no one in, but she had a daughter, she had grandchildren, it's their responsibility to take care of them. That's what this 8th verse is talking about. If I don't take care of my mother came to my house and lived with, if I refuse to take care of my mother, then I'm worse. I've denied the faith, and I'm worse than a careless person. This is talking about widows. But it's still under the heading of widows. Yeah. Because watch here. These verses refer to the remaining families of widows. Failure to provide. Now look at this. It gives you a Greek word, P-R-O-N-O-E-I, means to think ahead, to provide by seeing the needs in advance. For these family members gives a lie of any claim to God and becomes a denial of the faith. If I knew my mother wanted to live in New York, okay? And I'm going to use my mother as an example, okay? I would visit her and do, but I knew the day was coming that I have to have a plan to take care of her. She couldn't leave her apartment the only time she would leave is when I was there. It was once a year. Then she fell, and they put her into a nursing home. If I refuse to take care of her because I am the son, then I'm denying the faith of God. It's my responsibility to take care of my widowed mother, or could be a widowed husband, okay? And I've denied the faith. Let's see what Titus 1:16 says. Such people claim they know God, but they deny Him in the way they live. They are detestable, disobedient, worthless for doing anything good. Indeed, such a failure renders faulty family member worse than an unbeliever, since many non-Christians understand and fulfill their family responsibilities. When I was little, who took care of me? Okay, first it was mother. We had father. Father died. Mother was working. She put me into the orphan home, okay? But she always sent relatives to me. I did not see her sometimes for 2 or 3 months, but I knew she loved me. I lost that contact between the ages of 7 to 16. That's the years that you begin to form develop love for your parents. Because when she became a widow, I left her there for about, let's see, Dad died in 1980. She came to us, so she was there in New York for 20 years. And I would travel back and forth. Finally, the doctor called me and says, your mother has fallen. I cannot permit her to go home and live alone. I said, okay, I'm coming, I'm taking her home. Mom, but I told her, you have to come to my house because we want to take care of you. Okay? She accepted that. Then maybe about a year later, she decided she wanted to go into assisted living, which I did. That's son. So I did that. But it's part of taking care of the family responsibilities. She raised me, okay? And to raise children, one child from 0 to 18 is over $2 million that you will put out, doctors, eating, clothes, and everything else. So it's my responsibility. What Paul is saying to Timothy, your responsibility to take care of her. If the widow doesn't, if the widow has a family, then it's not the church's responsibility. But let me go on because there's more here. Okay? Let not a widow be taken into the number under 80 years, having been the wife of one man. So what they're saying here is, it's hard to see. It's in the other room. Because the widow doesn't have any money, okay, does not mean that she's on the list of the widows of the church. All right? Those that are 60 years old and up become the church responsibility. Now, here's the responsibility. Well reported have healed her affliction, if they have been diligently following good works. This is the qualification for the church to take care of a widow over 60 years of age. Good child care. Did my mother take care of me? Yes. Did my people and was friendly with people? Yes. Did my mother always humble in service and following believers? Yes. When people needed prayer, she was praying. Was she always giving money? Yes. She helped 2 of my cousins through college. So it became my responsibility to take care of her. Even though she was over 90, I couldn't permit the church to take care of her because I was still alive. So what Paul is talking about is the widow who is in need, family takes care of her. The widow that's young, okay, if I'm going out there and playing around, he has another word for them which comes next. This widow, because of the good things that she does, then it becomes a responsibility of mine to take care of her. Here. Now, younger widows. Younger widows refuse, for when they become wanton against Christ, they will be married. Paul, he says, okay, let me explain it to you, okay? You die, okay? And she said, oh, wonderful, Jeff's gone. Now I can go spend all the money I want. Everything else, I'm going to play around in the world and everything. Children just go on. I'm going to play. She's still young, right? Okay? So what it means, they've waxed wanton, they've turned away. Look at the bottom down here. Turned away from Christ. Paul says they need to be married. Why should they be out there doing fornication and having sex? They need to be married, yeah. Having damnation because they have cast off the first faith. Now remember when they said she is physically alive but spiritually dead? That's because she's not following God. She's physically alive but spiritually dead. The moment she strayed from God, she lost contact with God. Paul says, get her over here and let her marry. Young widows lack spiritual maturity to devote themselves to prayer and good works. They were cast out off their first faith. It's interesting how, if you think deep enough, you and I and Joyce have been working with one who has cast off the first faith and out there. Just think for a little bit, and if you can't think of that person, then we'll talk later, okay? Young widow. While she was married, she came to church. When her friends came to church, she came to church. Her husband or sweetheart died, and then she, okay? And with all they have learned to be idle. wandering about from house to house, not only idle, but tattletales, speaking things which they ought not to. This one fits, okay? They learn to be idle. In other words, young widows, okay, we make a pledge between God and my wife, the people of the congregation, and the pastor that stood before me and Joyce to get married. We made that pledge. Those three groups of people, okay? If I get a divorce, this is my opinion, I need to go back to the pastors, to the groups of people, and to Joyce and tell her, I'm going to divorce you. Because I broke the contract. But people who become idle, wanting out into the world, never tell the Lord, I'm sorry, I'm leaving you, I'm just going to go do what I want to do. They've already broke the blood covenant with God. Yes? They become tattletales. Good sign is saying things they should not. Okay? Interfering with affairs of other people. I think I have to stop. I'm going to stop here, okay? Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? I'm stopping here. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Bill Gates and his wife, wow. That's awesome, see? Everyone wants to know what the wife will do with the money, you know? But that's what it's talking about, interfering in the affairs of people. Because that was during the time when there was wars and things happening, there was many widows and the Romans would come in and take the men away. Now, you go back to Acts the 6th chapter. Widows was a big thing in the New Testament church. In fact, the disciples told in Acts the 6th chapter, they says, we can't continually give our attention to these widows, so we're going to set up a board, and they chose 7 to take care of the business of the church. That's the point of the board, or the committee, okay? And leaves the people, the disciples, in for studying the Word of God. Let me close this, and let me turn to Acts 6 for you, okay? Acts 6. Now, in those days, when the number of disciples increased, there arose a complaint against the Hebrew and the Hellenists which is Greek, because of the widows were being neglected in their daily business. Yeah. And it was Jewish and Greek. See? So this is part of that. That's what Paul was explaining to Timothy. We have to explain this because as widows in the church, there's a lot of widows that want to be on the church and for the church to take care of them. But if they have family, the young ones are going to be this busybodies, you know? And we have seen this in this church in action. Yeah. Widows, men, and women. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a good point. Why, when Jesus was on the cross, he told John to take care of his mother. Could be, yeah, very, very good. They went to Ephesus and lived there. See? But if the church saw that happen, they could suggest to the family to take care of it. That's the reason why I stepped off to the side here and explained it to him. Hey, John. Turn this off. Turn this off.